Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, morning, good evening, depending on the time zone that you are joining from. I am Oreoluwa Debayo, and I lead the team at We Collect, and um, I would say I'm also the host, or I am leading the conversation on about the African data conversations, where we just get to talk about like different topics that are around data, the process, the type of data we're collecting, what we're using data for across Africa, um, different topics, basically implementations. And today we're going to be talking about something very interesting and very impactful, because I believe that everyone in the world, one way or the other, interacts with data.
Mm,
Okay, everyone in the world interacts with data when it comes to do with food. And this time around, we're drawing like a parallel. I'm hoping that the conversation will be able to draw a parallel between food, nutrition, agriculture, and food, and just to see how that and how that flow goes. Not to dwell so much on that, we have a guest today, and I'm very excited about this, about our joining the conversation today, and maybe because I've I can say I'm a fan because I've spent so much time reading about our works, reading about the research you've done, you co-authored, the
oh,
one you were part of. So I think um, it even took me to a lot of rabbit holes that I I I spent like nights and nights reading about, but that's not the case. And today we have Dr. Messi with us. I would do a brief intro, then you can talk about yourself a little bit, then we would just kick off the conversation like that. So
sure.
basically, Dr. Messi currently serves as a lead for food security, nutrition, and health programs with the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture in Ibadan, and where their motto is to transform African agriculture. She holds a PhD in food science and international nutrition from Cornell University. And funny enough, she also has a master's degree in food science and international nutrition from the same university. Uh, and interestingly, our bachelor's is also in food technology, which kind of shows our interest has always been in that space from the beginning. And I think our expertise extends across over 30 countries in Africa, where she has a lot of research works. She's been involved with a couple of policy engagement and nutrition sensitive programming. I would say that among all our groundbreaking studies, the one that stands out to me is the randomized control trial that was conducted in Rwanda, where women consumed iron biofortified beans for 128 days. I'm hoping we'll get to talk more about that as we get into the conversation. But beyond those trials, she's been very instrumental in examining brain activities changes that are linked to improve iron status using advanced behavioral and neurological testing in university students. I think our contributions aren't just academic, they've helped in reshape how we view the role of agriculture in health, and by demonstrating that a simple locally grown crop can transform physical and mental well-being. She has modeled the potential of a smart, accessible nutrition intervention to empower real communities. Today she will be joining us to explore how high-field surveys for food and nutrition data in Africa can bring the same level of clarity and impact to policy and practice. I'm very honored to be here, and also just to throw this in case nobody knows, she is a registered nutritionist with the Kenya Nutrition and Dietetics Institute. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. Welcome, and welcome, Dr. Messi. It's so interesting to have you join us on the Africa Data conversation today.
Thank you very much, Oreo, for this very kind introduction. You said a lot. I didn't know I've done so much. So, you do things one step at a time, and then when they come together, they tell a story that even to you might look strange. But thank you for that. I'm really excited to have a conversation about data in Africa because I think it's the key moving forward to really help us get where we need to go. So, looking forward to this conversation.
Okay. So first things first, I would say that also in prepping for this conversation, I spent a couple of unhealthy hours um, reading some of your interviews that you've done, just to make sure that we don't spend time talking about something you've talked about in the past. So we
Good.
can talk about new stuff. Then anyone that is interested in the old things can go back to read the blogs. And
Yes.
so we're going to talk about stuff that you've not talked about before. And I think for one of the articles, the headline states, "My commitment is not just professional, it's deeply personal." And just to set the tone, before we get into like technical things with the research you've done, I would want to know like because you said it's personal, that means there should be like an inspiration to the journey. Where did it actually start from?
Thank you for that. So, you know, regardless of what we do, the why really matters. And for me, my why is what is personal. So, when my mother was pregnant with me, she had anemia. As a result, I was born too early. I was really, really small. Anemic myself, the doctors gave me 72 hours to live.
Wow.
And because I survived, you see me here today doing what I do. And in you're African, in our communities, when visitors come, you all line up in your Sunday best and you're introduced. And each time my mother told the story of my birth, what she didn't know that to me, it meant something. Each time I heard it, I said, my life needs to have meaning. My life has to have impact. And growing up where we grew up, to have impact, you're either a doctor, an engineer, an architect. So med school, I couldn't hack it. I had the grades, but not the competence. I see children cry, I cry. I see blood, I throw up. So that led me to nutrition. And slowly by slowly, nutrition led me to maternal and child nutrition, which is where I thrive. I look for solutions to help women and children not go through what my mother and I went through. So that's the personal drive that pushes me. So even when I go to communities and it's difficult and you're looking at challenges and you're like, how do we I don't give up. I'm like, okay, we'll find a way because we have to. For Mercy and her mother, we have to. There's a Mercy out there, there's a mom out there that needs us to bring the right data, the right solutions to allow them to thrive. So that's why I do what I do. I can make a difference.
And I must say that's very very inspirational, and I think it's a good drive, so that even in times when you don't get the results where you're expecting, you there's a force that is pushing you, that you it's because the work you're doing is very impactful, and because you've lived the journey, it is easy to communicate that. It's easy to motivate other people to do it. And I think there's something that I heard somebody say about how if you didn't go through it, you're just going to sympathize with the person. But if you actually went through that experience, you'll be able to comfort the person more, like because it's more like you've seen what the person has gone through, and you will be able to tell the person that it is going to be okay. And that means that you mean it, not that you're saying it's going to be okay because that's the right thing to say. If you tell somebody it's going to be okay, you mean, because you've gone through it, you actually mean it. So just to move off of that and now dive into what your experiences has been like from working across multiple African countries, and and we're just going to talk a little bit about where the connection is, because And I would say this because I have a strong background in data, and I've
Mm-hmm.
worked across a couple of health projects, but it has never really occurred to me the significance of just one, will I say, a particular defect in nutrition, and how it can spiral and it can go ahead to impact like an entire generation. So I think my question would be, from the farm to the table to the world, what does that connection look like? Like the food that we get from the farm, how does that impact the family as a unit, and how does that spiral to impact the world?
Um, I like to keep things simple. So, regardless of how you define it, nutrition begins with what you eat. If we don't have food, we don't have life. However, good diets are really important because when we don't have the right diets, we don't grow optimally. So, for example, poor diets would lead to anemia. A child is born with low hemoglobin. Their brain, the way it grows, is not optimal. It means that in their lifetime, they'll not reach their potential. So it doesn't matter what incentives you put ahead of them. They're already limited from the word go. So what we eat is fundamental to giving us the right nutrition, to allowing us to grow optimally, to allowing governments to flourish. I mean, hunger and malnutrition costs government the GDP, but it's also costing individuals. And I think that's where we're really talking about nutrition data and why it matters. It's because if we're to change the trajectory of Africa, if we're to allow Africa to thrive, for communities um, to uh, to be nourished, we need good policies, we need good programs. For that, we need good data. So it's all
Okay.
interlinked. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'm getting from what you're saying, that nutrition can actually affect the GDP of a country. Is that what you're saying?
Ah, I love that one. Let me give you something you can even write in an op-ed. Nutrition is a marker and maker of development. So if I go into a country and their nutrition is poor, I know development is poor.
Hmm.
I know they need to improve nutrition to improve their development. So nutrition is a marker and maker of development.
Nice. I think that's something that you can print on a shirt. And
Yeah.
but I must say, because I kind of had a similar experience growing up, where my mom, who is a very smart woman, would try to alternate, because I had a little bit of deficiency too, and she would try to look at, okay, what are the deficient vitamins, and try to make sure that is increased in the meals I get. And every time we talk about it, it's funny now looking back on how she was very intentional about that. And I and I said, like, um, picking off that, I was reading an article about how farmers are doing that to crops also, where they look at a particular land site, examine it to see, okay, what does how much nutrition is the farmland lacking, and look for the plants that you can use to balance that nutrition. So it's now, we're getting to the point of data. You can see
Mm-hmm.
how important data is in 2025, looking at from the situation of COVID and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that we are doing well in terms of mapping nutrition? Because, like, looking at just those simple things, looking at the deficiency, the areas where, for someone like myself, that if my mom didn't actually take time out to check, to do that test to see, okay, what vitamins are we lacking and how can we balance it off, do you think we're doing enough where we're testing our communities to know and I'm just looking at it from a map point of view because I have GIS background. Looking at it, where we are we checking from community to community or locality to locality, saying, okay, what are the deficient vitamins in these areas, and how are we? What are we going to do to improve them so that it is all balanced?
I really love your mom. I hope you send her a hug from me for being such an attentive mother. You know, what you're saying is that nutrition data in Africa is outdated, is fragmented, has serious gaps across countries. I want to use my experience in Nigeria to bring that point up. Nigeria gained independence in 1960. It has had three national nutrition surveys. The first one was in 1968. The next one was in 2001. The third one I was a part of was in 2021. I've asked myself this question. Nigeria is the giant of Africa. It has 10 million children who have stunted growth. Why don't we have more data points? And I'll tell you why. Funding cycles. You have surveys that are funded by donors. If donor interests do not align with national needs, you end up with a situation like this. The country needs a data point, but there's nobody to fund it. That tells me that Africa has to start self-funding for surveys, the nutrition data that we need. The second one is institutional silos. Food belongs to agriculture, nutrition and health belongs to the Ministry of Health. You already have a fragmentation, but what I love about Nigeria is because they're coming together to run surveys, but what we really need is a convergence. The food system and the health system have to start talking together. The data has to speak to each other for us to efficiently address the situations we're in, to understand the root causes of problems, to be able to address those problems efficiently and effectively. We need that convergence. And lastly is capacity gaps. Not just technical skills of how to collect data or how to put GPS so you know where you're collecting data. Now we need fair data. We need data that is findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. We need data that is born fair. So we need to be able to build that capacity within countries. So I love what you say because it's the biggest, I think, challenge we have moving forward in Africa. We need to create a data ecosystem that is well populated, and we can use that data to make informed decisions. Just like your mother is able to make informed decisions, or the farmer is able to make informed decisions, for countries to be able to make informed decisions, the continent, we need this data.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you, because just as you were speaking, I was just trying to think through my head where it would have been nice if we have a situation where at every point in time when because we have AI, we have a lot of technology improvement now. So it will have been really nice where at every point in time where you've been able to measure the time it takes for a particular farmland to run out of some certain nutrients, and use that data because you're consistently collecting data on the nutrients that are available to the farmland. You can now know, okay, that means if, for example, I'm just saying hypothetically, I'm not a farmer,
Mm-hmm.
but if, for example, every time you farm maize and the cycle of the farmland, let's say, is 20 years, how arable will it be after 20 years? What do we need to farm again to bring it back to the certain nutrients that it existed from the beginning? So stuff like that just shows like the opportunities that exist with if we pay attention to those kind of data sets where you're tracking the nutrients in the farmland, you're tracking the nutrients that are going into foods that we eat, you're tracking the nutrients that exist in every human that as we consume food, and that you can easily predict. Maybe you can probably predict an outbreak. You can know, oh, there's something that is likely to happen in this area. How can we mitigate it before it happens? Because one of the big big opportunities that exist with data collection across Africa is to be able to attend to issues early, like have early
Mm,
warning triggers where you're collecting this data, you've imputed some algorithms into it that would based off from the farmland to the dining table to the markets. If you're collecting all that data sets, you'll be able
mhm,
to have like early trigger warnings to let you know that okay, there's going to be lack of calcium in Jega local government in Kebbi State. What are we going to do to mitigate that? Do we need to start doing out? And you don't need to start seeing those actual things, but because you've been collecting data, it will give you those early warning signs. But sorry, I'm not out here trying to geek off of that. But to expand on the challenges you mentioned, because we're still going to talk solutions. To expand
mhm.
on the challenges and I think I'm going to focus on where we're trying to fit circles into triangles, where where you said the people that are funding this project have their own they have their own methodology, they have what they're trying to achieve, and we also as a country have what we're trying to achieve. But most times, because of that imbalance, is either the project doesn't go the way we want it to go, or we don't get the kind of data that we need. Can you expand more on that, on like maybe do you think is a technology problem, or do you think is a maybe the people, like maybe let's, and I'll give you a typical example to explain that. If maybe like an international organization, they want to fund something, but and they want to achieve a certain thing, or they have a particular technology that they would want the team on ground to use. And if the team on ground is not or that technology is not familiar with the environment, the data will be screwed. So what I'm saying is, do you think is that kind of problem, or is just a policy problem?
Hmm, that's really interesting. You know what I find so reassuring is that in the nutrition space, we kind of agree on what we want to achieve and where we are headed. And when I look at the challenges, that would be a very interesting question because I have two answers. When I started my career, fieldwork in Africa would humble the most confident project plan. Let me give me an example. Um, it doesn't mean I'm that old. It just means we've leapfrogged there. When I started my career doing the first survey, we went to the field with paper and pen. You take your data, then you come to the office, you enter your data, you double enter to cross check for errors, and then your data becomes ready to be interrogated. Um, I remember in Isiolo one time, we went to Scope, a village, because we needed to collect data. I walked from one village to another to check on the team. The following 2 weeks later, when we were there, we needed a boat because it was starting to rain and the road was actually a river. I remember in Siaya, we went to look at the food environment. We were looking at crops, how much does maize cost. So we wanted to go back the second week to just cross check. The market had moved. It was a revolving market. I remember in Vihiga, where I come from, I said, I know this area. We can be one day in each village. So 5 days we're out. We went, there was a funeral. All the villagers had combined to come. It was a big man who had passed on. We spent 2 weeks in that village waiting for the funeral to be had before we collect data. So,
Wow.
those were the days we had adventure. When we conducted the 2021 survey, I had tablets and dashboards. We were sending data to clouds. My enumerator in Kano, Abuja, and Lagos were at the same time sending data from Comcare to the cloud, and I could sit here and look at the dashboard and tell what's going on. So that's to say that we have leapfrogged. But still, we do have digital infrastructure challenges that if we can just tweak a little bit, if we can pick up the pace, collecting data will be a it will be a no-brainer in Africa. It will be easy to do, but we've come a long way, and where we're going is even more exciting. So I wouldn't focus on the challenges really. I'd really focus on the opportunities moving forward.
Yeah, I think I to be honest, that's a very interesting way to look at that situation, because you basically just took us on an history journey of where we started from in terms of data. But one thing that stood out for me in your answer was you talking about the dynamic situation of Africa, where you need
Mhm.
to understand, like, the same way you collect data in Africa is completely different from the way you collect data in France. So you may have someone could have sat down, designed a very nice data collection structure, like you said, where you just go in 5 days, you collect the data, you're out. But you get to you get to the area and you realize that the place that used to be a market is no longer a market anymore. It's now a river, because of the unique situation of that particular environment. So
Mhm.
it is obvious that as Africa, we need to build our own systems. We need to
Yes.
have our own data collection systems, where our systems are sitting on top our cultural values, are sitting on top our our communication style, the
Yes, our
language.
uniqueness. Yes, our spice, our flavor. It works better, yes, to get the nuances from the data. Mhm.
Okay, so just to take it off of that, and the I think, still talking about data collection, still somewhere around the challenges. I would also just want to, because and which is still like the uniqueness of Africa, where we, the way what I learned in urban geography about settlements is
Mhm.
Africa has broken a lot of those processes where they say, oh, okay, the linear settlement. But sometimes you can see an highway where it is expected that, based off of that theory, that development will follow the highway. But you will just find someone that says, oh no, his grandfather used to stay in this particular village, and that's
Mhm.
how he started. That's how that particular community just expanded, and that's where the community started from. Whether there's a connecting road, nobody knows. It's probably a farmland and the village situated. And I will give you a story. There was a time we did a project in Kirby,
Mhm.
and we were supposed to, like, they gave us like a list of communities to go to, and we were we believe we've gone to the entire area. We've combed the local government from top to bottom. And but by the time we were reviewing our community list, there was just about two or three left, and we were confused because I brought in my GIS knowledge, where we picked up a map. I was seeing all the roads, and I was like, "Now, all the roads to each community we've gone. Where could this community exist?" So we had to, like, reach out to one of the leaders, and we're like, "Where can we find this community?" And he was like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
we just need to go to somebody's market, to somebody's farm, go through the farm." It wasn't a road. We just needed to go through the farm and get to that community, because it was a farming community where they started building it started from one family because of that large parcel of farm, and they expanded based off of that. So how can we solve those problems where we have blind spots, where, because of our uniqueness, now, in this case, technology is great. We can always do with technology, but this is something that is very, very unique because of the way we adapt to our environment here in Africa. So, because for data collection is it's very, very easy to miss this kind of blind spots,
Mhm.
where you won't just know that those people exist, or where that they are there, and nobody's collecting data about them, and you are making decisions that impact them, and they don't contribute to those decisions.
Hmm.
So how do we solve for those kind of blind spots?
I really love your story. And because it's really real. For the 2021 National Food Consumption and Micronutrient Survey, we had a formula. We go to the community, we go first and pay homage to the king, or is it the chief? I learned how to prostrate. You know the way you greet? Kenyans, you just walk in and everybody is down on the floor, and I'm wondering, what happened? But I had to learn how to do that because I realized one thing. It's good manners when you go to a community to ask them who they are, ask them how they live, because you're validating the map that you have. You went with your own GIS thinking you know the environment, right? But
Yeah.
why this is also critical, we say it like, it's good manners to do, but it's also scientifically sound to do because it allows you to create quality data. There are three things about data that those visits to those kings helped me to do, other than, uh, master how to prostrate and how to sit on the floor, and how to say greetings in Yoruba and Hausa and those other languages. There are three things I learned in school that came to the fore. One is sampling. Something must be representative. If you're collecting data and it does not look like reality, you're misleading us. So, being able to do that, having platforms like We Collect that can verify that the sampling that we are doing is representative, that is really important. It's a key challenge that we have to address. The other one is you need indicators that matter locally. I remember one time we went to this chief, and the daughters, the royal family was there, and the lady was very interested in the survey we were doing, and she asked me what was the most interesting thing about the survey, what did I want to learn more. And because of anemia, of course, I said I want to know if supplementation, women are taking supplements. And there were a few women out there, and as we were talking, I realized what I assumed was a supplement and what they knew to be a supplement were two different things. So you can use the same language, but if the indicator is not locally relevant, then you're in trouble. So we had to change for that question. Do you know we had to go and get the supplement from the local primary healthcare center? And we showed the woman when we spoke about that question so that that indicator would be locally relevant to her. But from those two experiences, what we also learned was that end-to-end quality control was important. So we taught our enumerators when they were collecting data to look the respondent in the face, in the eye, to look for confusion when we were asking questions, to probe deeper, especially when we're asking, what did you eat? How much of it did you eat? We know when somebody is saying something and they're not sure, to be able to clarify. So the end-to-end quality control came from training enumerators to having the logic checks in the software to just cross-check what we were doing. So I love what you say, because collecting quality data is not just about having the right questionnaire and the right questions. It's about making sure the sampling is done right. Indicators matter locally. You have end-to-end controls. And these things really helped us when we were doing the national survey to be able to bring together data that was really solid.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree with you. And I saw someone do a thumbs up in the audience. So I agree with you. Everyone agrees with you. And I think I you all heard it that with what we're building in WeCollect is really helping to solve a lot of problems like that, where we are using localized enumerators to actually collect data from their own community, not just somebody like us that was from somewhere in Abuja that flew all the way to Kebbi, and we're kind of stuck looking for some communities. It's
Hmm.
one of the ways to look at it is to use people within that community to
Of
collect
course.
data because they understand the environment more than anyone else, and that's what we're building with We Collect. But just to piggy off that and to let's get I think this is very interesting, and I chipped this in. This question wasn't supposed to be there. I put this in by myself because for my own consumption, and that's to talk about the study you did on iron fortified beans, and
Biofortified beans, yes.
yeah, iron fortified beans, and I think for me,
No, there's a difference between
okay,
fortified and biofortified. So it's
oh,
biofortified,
so
yes.
it's bio fortified.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think you will talk about the difference and to come, but I think I would say, and anyone that has read that research would agree with me that it is a very impactful research where you can actually see the actual impact with the people on ground,
Hmm.
and it's it basically involves just tracking nutrition outcomes with real people, not
Yeah.
someone sitting on a computer trying to make projections. This is actually on ground, on site, real study. And I
Hmm.
think, I don't know if you want to just briefly run us through what the technicalities. And when I mean technicalities, I mean like the from designing the survey, from you came up with the idea that this is what you wanted to do. What was that process like till up until the point of the result? But you can also talk about the difference between the fortified beans and bio fortified iron fortified beans and bio fortified beans. I don't know. I think I'm mixing them up.
It's easy to mix them up because they're so closely related. So, I love this question because it tells you why we do what we do. So, I said nutrition begins with what you eat, and agriculture's job is to produce what you eat. But it should produce what we eat in a way that it nourishes us. But food systems are dysfunctional. So nutrients don't reach the people who need it at the time that they need it, right? So we have four interventions to address things like anemia. Anemia happens when you don't have enough iron in your diet. So there are four ways you can address it. You can diversify the diet where you're eating more meat, fish, fruits, vegetables, a lot of diversity. A challenge with that is that food is expensive. People are eating monotonous diets. So another approach is, in the case of my mother, she should have gotten a supplement. And that's why I do a survey to ask, are pregnant women getting the supplement because they need it? However, majority of us should get this iron in two ways. Through fortification, where maize will be grown in the field. It would go to a factory where they would mill it into flour. They would add a premix, which is minerals with iron, zinc, or whatever, and then package it, and it would find you on your pantry. And when you cook, your iron gets you on your table. The problem is that farming communities like the ones we're talking about don't buy processed flour. They make
Yeah.
their own flour. For such communities, then we need the seed that they grow to have the iron, such that when they mill the flour, then they have the iron. So biofortification and fortification are two interventions that work closely together, and to meet the last mile. I like the question you ask about where should the conversation begin. So in Nigeria, for example, let me give you the example of zinc. We've done a national survey. We've looked at the micronutrient deficiencies. What do people suffer from? What is lacking in the diet? We find that zinc is lacking. But I've also looked at what are people eating. And I can see they're eating rice and cassava and beef and what have you. And I'm asking, what are the top 10 foods that they can get their zinc from? And then I come to my team and I say, we have a model we can run to say, what would be the cost of fortification? What would be the cost of biofortification? And just this morning, my teammate sent me data to show me that biofortification would really work well in rice. So we already have a rice in Nigeria that is biofortified with zinc. So my job now is to show the government that this rice would be efficacious. It would do what we need it to do. So we would look for a community that eats a lot of rice, that also has a zinc deficiency. And then I would use my Cornell training in epidemiology to create a project where I'm feeding these women. It works well with women because they are very good at tracking what they eat. They don't forget. Men, you forget all the time. So women are always a good team to work with because they remember everything. So you track them over time and you're feeding them this food and asking, how quickly does it take before the zinc the zinc quantity of zinc in the blood increases? And then I would look at that to say, um, is this a good way of addressing issues? So when you look at the data we had in Rwanda, there were 3 studies that were done across the world. There was palm millet in India, there was rice in the Philippines. Yes. And then there was iron in Rwanda. There's a review paper that compared the 3, and it was able to show that the iron in the beans was always superior. It was faster, it was better in helping women recover. So we're just saying food should become our medicine. If you can use data from surveys to improve the way that the food nourishes us, and we can use this data to show governments that investing in agriculture, investing in interventions like biofortification can in the long run help you improve nutrition, improve development, improve communities, then my job here is done. But now there's a lot we need to do with the data to really improve how quickly we help governments get to these solutions and how quickly we help agriculture meet health halfway and be able to create interventions that can really work.
And yeah, I think that's I'm convinced. If I was the government, I'm convinced. But also, looking at what you said, because I just to reference a couple of your interviews that I read, where you were talking about how you're very much interested in breaking the wall, the fence between nutrition and agriculture, where in many cases they are seen at they're both in silos, whereby you believe, and I agree with you, that all our surveys should cut across both the nutrition and agriculture, not where we're just surveying one side and leaving out the other. And it's with what you said, it shows how impactful with that, and also how we should also continuously collect data, because, and I'm sure you agree with me that once you get the first after your first survey, you get the data in, you still need to keep monitoring, because you've figured out that, okay, you need to put in this particular nutrients back into the community. We also need to keep monitoring that, okay, how is this particular seed or this particular farm produce, how is it faring in terms of the people, and also as far as monitoring the kind of situations that happen from the healthcare centers. And I think when we had our call the first time, I talked about the survey that the survey that I read about, where they were trying to track malnutrition in some northern states, and they were comparing 2 different data collection techniques, both the paper-based and the SMS-based data collection methodology. And one of the conclusions was that the data that was gotten from those two methodologies were still bad, but they were similar. So like they didn't get the right outputs, but 2 of them got the same type of data. And one of the opportunities in those kind of survey was talking about how it is the methodology or the approach that was flawed, where they were collecting data from the hospitals, whereby it could have been an entire food chain, where they collect data from the farm, they collect data from the dining table, they collect data from the hospital. So it's not just a one survey thing, it's a continuous thing. You've done the first lap, you've deployed the nutrition the nutrients into the system, you need to run that and that lap again. And I think and just to throw in the last question on that, so as we wrap up, we have a list of rapid fire questions. But before we get to that, I just want you to make a comment on food insecurity and food shortage. Are they the same?
Food insecurity, food shortage, are they the same? Does it matter? I always tell people, I understand food insecurity because I've slept hungry. I remember us not having food. When you're young, you don't know. So I'm like, whether there was a shortage or there was an insecurity, bottom line is we didn't have what to eat. And those are the things we are trying to avoid. I really love what you say about monitoring because I feel for nutrition, for food security, we're not doing enough or we could do better. And for that, I ask, how can we innovate? Um, what do we need to monitor for? Right now, I just finished reading the State of Food Insecurity report, the SOFI 2025 report, that looks at inflation and how it's causing a lot of food insecurity. And I really feel that we need to track food prices. We need a listening post on the ground to be that is able to collect data and then turn on an alarm when households are beginning to reduce the amount of food they're eating, the diversity of that food, the portion size, the frequency, and we're able to intervene, and then it shuts off when things are okay. I think we need something like that. Um, the other thing I'm really concerned about when we talk about data is the cost of surveys. We're able to do a lot in Nigeria because we ran a very comprehensive survey that was very expensive. And I'm worried that donors will say, oh, it's very expensive, we don't need to run it. We only have, this is a third survey. Imagine how much it has cost us to not have data. We need to innovate around what you're doing as we collect, to be able to have listening posts that are able to take longitudinal data over time. And then our surveys become just an audit of the system to say, okay, if we're to just audit the system right now, are the signals we're receiving from the listening post the right thing? And to be able to do that, I feel we need to look at the readiness of systems. And I'm concerned for three things. If servers, software, skills are offshore, we're not building capacity, we're building dependence. So what's the value proposition in Africa for building capacity, for having those listening posts so that no family goes hungry, no children's portion sizes have to be reduced because food prices are just too high, and governments are able to react in real time. I'm writing now a proposal for wasting children who have a crisis. And I'm thinking, why should I see wasting to be able to act on it? Why shouldn't we go in with the intervention before the children are wasted? Because it's a cycle that relapse back into wasting. So I really love this idea that you're bringing here, that AI digital tools are coming on board, so we act before it's too late. We don't need to analyze the survey and then realize, oh, these are the problems. We need a survey that tells us in real time what's coming, and we can use predictive analytics and modeling to be able to say this is the best way to mitigate what's coming and be able to act. I think it will be cheaper. I think it will allow us as Africa to meet our promises around zero hunger and the Agenda 2063 of the AU. And we need to, in our lifetime, we need to nourish Africa. We need to leave a legacy of a nourished world.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think we're slowly running out of time. So I'm going to skip the rapid questions, and also just to comment on what you said, that more consistently collecting data where you're monitoring those systems is very important. And just to put it out there that that's part of what we've been able to incorporate into our system at We Collect, where we can help organizations consistently track different type of data sets from different part of the country, and they don't necessarily need to also have to deploy a survey all the time. They need to collect those kinds of data, which is what we are trying to provide. But just to throw it open to the audience, anyone that has any question can feel free to comment. We have Dr. Messi here. She's spoken a lot about nutrition and everything that has been done in the past and what we're doing. So put your questions in the comment section. If you're streaming from Teams, if you're streaming from LinkedIn, feel free to put your questions in the comment. I'll be looking out for them. But in the meantime, just one question. And I think I don't need you can have a one-liner answer. If there's any survey question, like a survey, one question that you would take out of a survey, what would that question be? Like, you know that this question is redundant, but every time they are always asking that question. What would that question be?
I'd flip your question. I think the question you ask is really important and is something I've thought really deeply about. I ascribe to the 80-20 rule. I think there are 20% of questions we can ask that will give us 80% of the information we need to execute. For me, that's a challenge now to you. Can you get us that 20% so that we can dump the rest and know what we need to focus on? But I also love what you say about what you do as We Collect. In science, it's really important that we validate. So this is me daring you. Come, let's work together and validate some of what you've done so that we can showcase what is feasible. If we can disrupt the system, we can really change how we do business. I was listening to this podcast about how AI is revolutionizing everything. I think in 3 years, we'll do things very differently. But we need to be open to that change. So I'm inviting you and IIT to come together and start asking, what does that change look like in the scientific space where we have, our rules and regulations of how we do business? How do we evolve so that we're able to really make a difference quickly and have an impact?
Okay, sure. I'm looking forward to working with you, and it will be really nice to connect. And just to point this out, since you brought this up, we are starting a survey from September, where we would be tracking diet quality across the country, and this is part of our own give back, where we actually give open source data. Like, since last year, we've been tracking the price of food from across the country every month. We've been doing that every month since May of 2024. So also we are starting on another type of that survey in September, where we would be collecting data on diet quality from across the country. So I'm sure, but that's our own personal project. There are a lot more projects that we can work on, and I'm sure that the organizations or people that are in the audience that are interested in that can also reach out to me if they want to partner with us on that particular project. And
Yeah,
we
we
would
should
also,
partner. We should partner on that one. I have
all right.
ideas.
All right, because our plan for that is to have a dashboard where you can consistently see what the diet of every state or every locality in Nigeria looks like. That's the goal. So it's more like anybody that is interested in tracking that data, or just having a visualization of, okay, what does the diet in Kano State look like? What are they consuming? What are the people eating compared to what are they eating in Lagos? So it's those kind of data points gives you an understanding on what can they do better, what kind of food should we be pushing to those sides, what are the alternatives to the things that they are lacking and whatnot. So those are the kind of questions we hope to answer, and I'm sure that by the time we talk, we'll be able to probably expand on that, and you give us more ideas on that. So we are slowly getting to the end. I can't see any question in the chat box. Looks like I have asked all the questions, and nobody wants to ask any question. But just as we wrap up, one final word. And do you think that every organization involved should be collecting data? as we close?
That's a good question. All of us collect data every day. So, what do you mean?
I mean like because one of the challenges is that data is in silos.
Yes,
So the
I wanted
question
to
is,
bring that out. I wanted to draw you out so that we can say what we need to say. Um, we are slowly coming to the realization that the way we're collecting data is inefficient and it's not serving the people it needs to serve. We need to build a data ecosystem. That's part of what I'm doing in Nigeria and what I push across Africa. That we need an ecosystem where longitudinal data, cross-sectional data are talking to each other. Data from listening posts and what we do as audits is talking to each other. It sounds simple until it's not, because you realize it's like apples and oranges. Yes, they're fruits until you need to make a salad and you need to say, how do they fit in? So the conversations have begun to say we need to do this better. With the advances in AI, what we need to agree is, okay, what does success look like, and what is everybody's role in making this happen? But I agree with you. What we're doing is inefficient. We need to do things differently.
thank you very much. We can go on, and we would just end up spending the whole day. But as we wrap up our conversation, just to um, reiterate again that this conversation was brought to you by We Collect, and where we are building a system to simplify data collection in Africa, starting from Nigeria. And we basically operate with a distributed network of agents across the country, and our own technology that is made for Africa by Africans to collect data from anywhere in Nigeria. We currently have a product where we enable organization, individuals, researchers, anyone that needs data from anywhere in Nigeria to collect data in 72 hours. So if you find yourself within that particular way, you can reach out to us, and we would help you get the data. Or if you want to participate in any of our surveys, you can also let us know. But thank you very much, Dr. Messi. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
I'm definitely going to be replaying it over and over, and I'm really looking forward to probably bringing you back to talk more on what you do best, and maybe in some of our, maybe by the time we're done with the diet quality survey, we can come back to talk about our learnings and what the output look like. So thank
Why
you very
not?
much.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much. This
much.
has
Thank
been
you very
very
much.
insightful.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for sticking with us for the past 1 hour, where we geek about our interest in nutrition and diet across Africa. We learned from the best who,
Oh,
who,
thank you.
who has all the experience that we need. So thank you, and I can't wait to connect with you, and probably we'll be working together in the next future. But thank you all, and we'll catch you again on the next edition of the African Data Conversation. Thank you very much, and bye for now.
Bye.
Yeah.